All right, and I think we're live, and it'll take a little bit for people to get in there, but I guess I'll just introduce the topic. So today, I kind of do this a lot. I'll throw out a comment and try and start conversations, and this one worked perfectly with one of my favorite YouTubers saw it, and we're now having a conversation about it. So
Sure.
yeah, I made a comment on Danny's one of Danny's debates. What was the topic? Was like something about gender or what is a woman or something.
Well, it was
And
like gender in the Bible.
okay, or oh, it was like was it the one where he was saying that Christians should believe in a third gender because God is neither man nor woman
Yeah, it
or
was
male or
something like
female?
that. It was just a clip of a debate. The title is
Yeah,
three genders on Christianity question mark.
yeah,
And I thought Danny did really good, or really well.
yeah. It's definitely an interesting topic. So it got me thinking, like, well, is non-gender a gender? And
Uh,
so, yeah,
no, I don't think I've heard that term before.
like
I,
agender.
yeah, I think non-binary would be the term that people use. Um, like the idea of not having a gender is, a little bit out there. I have heard that brought up, but I don't really know how you can not have a gender, but I don't know.
Yeah, so that got me thinking, like, what even is a gender? How would you define it? And yeah, so that was my comment. Maybe we should read that. Then you kind of had your response to that.
Yeah.
Um, so in bold is what I said. So I've looked this up before, and I'm kind of autistic when it comes to language and definitions, so I'm very strict about it. So the dictionary definition says gender is male or female, or any identity that is not male or female. So to me, that's funny because it's like, okay, so it's what if the definition of fox was a that canine, a small canine, or anything that's not a small canine that of the order Vulpes or whatever. So it kind of
Yeah.
just seems like it could mean anything.
I don't know if I would agree with that definition. Was that like dictionary.com or
That was just Google, I think. So usually that's like Oxford language.
okay.
Let me see. I'll just Google word definitions and go off of that. I don't find there's really much meaningful difference like between Webster and stuff. Yeah, so that's Oxford languages. Either of the two sexes, male and female, especially when considered with reference to social and cultural differences rather than biological ones. The term is also used to broadly denote a range of identities that do not correspond to established ideas of male and female.
Right. So I think off the bat we should probably uh, show the distinction between the term sex and the term gender.
Mm-hmm.
So sex, the way I like to think of it is if you're talking about the sex of an organism, that's biological. But if we're talking about gender, that's more sociological.
Mm-hmm.
So that is more something that humans have sort of not, well, I guess you could say invented. People say that gender is a social construct, but sex, biological sex, is basically determined in humans anyway by the size of your gametes. So if you have a lot of small gametes, those are sperm, and we'd classify somebody as a male. And then if you have a very small amount of larger gametes, those are eggs, and you'd be classified as female. But see,
Mm-hmm.
there's a problem with even that distinction because, or that classification, because there are women who later in life no longer produce eggs because of menopause or because of different disorders, and they're still women, So do we
Yeah.
classify it as if you have a XX chromosome, you're a woman, and your XY, you're a man? Well, that's another way to classify sex. But then you have intersex people, where
Mhm.
somebody can have XYY chromosomes or XXY, or they can look like a guy like you or me, but they might have internal ovaries, or they might, you've heard of somebody who's like a hermaphrodite. They have hermaphroditic tissue. They can have a mixture of genital tissue where the doctors will either just kind of do their best guess when the baby is born as to what the gender should be, or they'll do surgery right after a baby's born to try and make their genitals look more like either penis or vagina. And obviously the baby doesn't consent to that, you know what I mean? So
Hmm.
the so sex is like a biological distinction, but when it comes to gender, like that's something, like if you can scroll up, um there's gender. So I'll just read what this says. It says gender is a social and legal status and a set of expectations from society about behaviors, characteristics, and thoughts. Each culture has standards about the way that people should behave based on their gender. So those are what we call gender roles. Like the idea that when you're a kid, if you're a girl, you'll get a birthday present that's like Barbie dolls, but a boy will get something like Tonka trucks, or like something that's like, manly. Like there's even sections in like Toys R Us for girls' toys and boys' toys. Well, that's totally arbitrary. You know what I mean? There's no technical reason why a boy couldn't be interested in the other type of toys and vice versa. It's
Well,
like,
yeah, I mean that is true, but there is a definite tendency. Like I think I'm not sure the exact number, but most boys will be interested in um, toys that are more things, and most girls will be interested in toys that resemble people and social things. And same with apes. This is the same tendency, but it is a tendency, so it shouldn't be, you know, forced on anyone. But there
right.
it is marketed toward a certain demographic because that's where they'll get the most sales.
Yeah, and I agree. And um, I think that's what's kind of tough about this subject, is that,
Mhm.
you know I believe that some of that gender behavior is influenced by people's hormones, like estrogen versus testosterone. I think it makes sense that men are, or boys usually, will play rougher and like be more interested in uh, athletic sports, or they usually tend to get injured more than girls. And testosterone is a hormone that usually increases aggression, and boys tend to fight more than girls in grade school. And obviously these are generalizations, but one interesting
Mhm.
detail is that when a baby is born, if it's a boy, we always think that they should be put in a blue blanket. You wouldn't put a boy in a pink blanket. But I think it was like 100 years ago, it was actually switched, where boys would be put in pink blankets. It was more of a red color than pink, but it was still, that was switched. So I think it just shows that some of these things are arbitrary, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, for
So
sure. I'm a big proponent that male anatomy is more suited for dresses and females for pants, but that's a different discussion entirely. Well, not really, actually. Um, but
yeah,
yeah, so it is there are a lot of just constructs that aren't uh, even biologically, that don't even make biological sense. Um, and then there are things that are biologically correlated, like even down to being able to get pregnant, which there are XY females that have gotten pregnant and had viable offspring. Um, it's pretty rare, and it does require some medical intervention, but um, so do heart attacks. So if you're alive because you received CPR, are you like an unnatural being?
mhm.
Um, and if and there are females who suffer from natural infertility who go through XX females who get medical treatment for fertility, and they're only able to conceive because of modern medical interventions. No one's going to say that they're not female.
Right.
Um,
That's one
and
of the funniest, like, arguments when I hear that from people on, like, Twitter that are called, like, TERFs, like the trans exclusionary feminists, that they
mm,
say, "Well, a trans woman can't get pregnant, can't give birth to a baby, so you're not a woman." And then people say, "Well, I am infertile. Does that mean I'm not a woman? Or I had a hysterectomy. Does that mean
yeah,
that I'm no longer a woman?" So, uh,
I think the woman in Danny's debate was saying it means you're ordered toward that feminine stereotype, and I understood what she was saying, but I don't think she really understood the implication of that. Um, because then that should include trans women, because being ordered toward female doesn't mean that you need to be able to get pregnant or even
right.
have, you could be born completely without a uterus. You're not, that's not ordered toward that. But I also like to ask the question, okay, so medical science solves uterus transplants. Okay, what now? Are they now women? What if medical science can stimulate stem cells to grow your own uterus? Is the concept of trans viable now? And it seems like the definition should be able to hold throughout medical science. Like you suddenly don't change your principles just because science had a breakthrough.
Right. And I think that science agrees that transgender people do exist, they're valid, and that gender dysphoria, we can talk about that later,
Mm-hmm.
is a legitimate condition. You'll find these things in the DSM-5, and I think the science is settled on it, at least in my opinion. But um, just
Mm-hmm.
because these procedures now, like they call it a gender confirmation surgery, or some people call it a sex change, just because they aren't as advanced now as they could be, there could be one day in the future where, basically every single category that you would refer to a biological woman as, you could get surgery and have those characteristics and fall under those categories. They could create a perfectly functional womb and genitals and all of that, and then
You
I have
could
to wonder what
even
those people will say then.
There could even be gene therapies to replace the Y chromosome with an X,
Yeah, or even choosing what gender you want your baby to be before they're born. Like, that's a whole
mm-hmm.
other issue, but who knows?
or brain transplants, anything like that. So I mean, yeah, I think. Well, I do agree that the word transsexual is useful. I think that you can biologically change your sex. Even like the animals definitely can. I think
I,
it's a little harder to justify with humans, but
yeah, I think I
seeing
would
as
disagree for humans.
because I don't count reproductive ability as being able to identify a sex. So um, I think that there, if you get enough sexual characteristics, um, then that would be a biological change. But yeah, that's kind of that's not relevant to like what the definition of gender is, I guess.
Yeah, so I guess I'll just finish reading this part real quick. So
Mhm.
it says each culture has standards about the way people should behave based on their gender. This is also generally male or female, but instead of being about body parts, it's more about how you're expected to act because of your sex. And then gender identity is also a different thing than just gender. So that's how you feel inside and how you express your gender through clothing, behavior, and personal appearance, things like makeup or hairstyles. And it's a
Mhm.
feeling that begins very early in life. So this is like when it comes to the issue of somebody transitioning. So, like, when you see a stranger in public, basically will make a determination on if that person is male or female based on secondary sex characteristics, probably clothing, probably things like if they have long hair, if they're wearing makeup, if they have like slender facial features versus a broad jaw, or if they have facial hair, or if they have breast tissue, or like a big ass. And you make that distinction really quickly. But see, you don't technically know if that person is a what we call a biological woman or a cisgender woman or a trans woman. And because we
Mhm.
don't go around checking people's genitalia to determine whether or not they're male or female.
Yeah,
So,
or gene testing them.
right.
Yeah,
So like
so the
you
cons
exist in society like
yeah.
as male or female. That's the way I see it.
Yeah, so I think identifying gender by genetics or genitals is clearly false because that is not how we identify people
Mm-hmm.
in in normal life, and it hasn't been for, you know, ever. You could tell with someone's clothes on what the word you should use for it is. But so I definitely agree there. Where I would probably quibble a little bit is like I understand that there are gender role stereotypes, but I think strictly speaking, like you can break those roles as stereotypes and still be considered that gender. It was different kind of in the Middle Ages, whereas like it's interesting where homosexuality wasn't thought of as wrong because it's like same sex. It was like you're breaking the concept of gender, whereas like men are the penetrators. It doesn't matter if you're penetrating a man or not. If you are a man and you're getting penetrated, that's the problem. Or if a woman is the penetrator,
Mm-hmm.
that's the problem. Like they had a weird concept that's a lot different than our what our bigots today would conceive of as the problem.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe you could like ask me something or talk about like something where you feel like you're more like not confused, but just like unsure of or not sure if you agree with it. But I do
Yeah.
think that's kind of interesting, like about how I guess in ancient Greece, like warriors, men who would take on apprentices, they would have relationships with them. And usually they were
Hmm.
young boys, and this was just
Yeah.
considered normal,
Hmm.
you know? So that's another thing about how different societies have different you know roles and things they view as being normal or abnormal, kind of like how Scottish people, they wear something that we might call a dress in America, but over there it's normal for men to wear it like a kilt. you know
Hmm. Shout out to my Scottish ancestors.
Nice.
And I forget where I learned this or how accurate it is, but I heard a saying from somewhere in the Middle East where supposedly women are for babies and boys are for sex. So it's a pretty antiquated, probably. Don't know how accurate it is, but sounds like it's probably accurate in some areas of the world.
Yeah.
But um, yeah, in terms of where I guess I would probably quibble about the gender stereotypes is again, you could break that stereotype. You could be um, a non-masculine man, or not fulfill the societal roles of a woman, like be a girl boss, not be at home with barefoot in the kitchen with two kids, um, and you'd still fit that definition of gender. And but that leads me to this thought of like so non-binary kind of seems to be encouraging this thought process of if you don't fit into the stereotype, you're not that gender. So to me, that says, well, if I'm a feminine man, I can't be a man anymore. It's not that I can't be, but that I'm encouraged to think that I might not be. And I think that's kind of a problem because that actually encourages the gender stereotype. Whereas if you feel like you don't fit into the stereotype, you probably are some different gender. And I think that's problematic.
Well, I think this is where it's useful to maybe think of the concept of gender as maybe being like a spectrum rather than a strict binary. So I think it makes sense if you imagine it more as a spectrum where there's like many points on this spectrum where you have male on one end and female on the other, and you have men who are more manly who are farther to the left, and then maybe men who have feminine characteristics or are maybe in touch with their feminine side or feminine emotions that would be closer to the feminine end of the spectrum. And that doesn't mean non-binary people are perfectly in the middle. And really, the term non-binary, these terms are really just for people to self-identify with whatever makes them feel more comfortable. And I've seen people who say, well, I'm non-binary, but I can also use male pronouns. And um, there are some non-binary people who just feel like they don't fit within either one of these options, and there are some who want to totally abolish the gender binary. Like, I think that's a little bit advanced and kind of out there. I don't personally agree with that. Not that I think it's wrong, but it just seems a little bit like that's something that wouldn't happen for many years. Like, our society is firmly entrenched in this strict binary. Like, basically, if you want to be accepted by most people in our society, you kind of need to what's called like pass as either male or female, or otherwise you're probably going to face discrimination from people who are bigoted or people who just don't understand these concepts. But I mean, if you think about it, like, there's no like law that says you have to follow gender roles, like, and some
Hmm.
people think like, well, who made this decision for me that I have to act a certain way? You know what I mean? Like, I'm comfortable presenting as male and using male pronouns, but some people aren't, and I think it's whatever makes you comfortable. Now, I talked about this later in that paper. I said, if you want to call yourself these certain pronouns or use they them pronouns, if that makes you more comfortable, I encourage it. Whatever makes you feel more comfortable and safe within your own identity, but you need to also have realistic expectations about what you expect other people to say, like if they're going to use the pronouns that you want. Like, your friends might, but not everybody is going to, and I think you need to be prepared for that.
Hmm. Yeah, so we want to make people feel comfortable, but at the same time, it seems like, I going to this highlighted part, I feel like gender is um, largely kind of a linguistic thing, which is for other people to talk about someone, not to talk to. Like, if you talk to someone, you're going to be using the you pronouns, like second person pronouns. Um, and so it seems like it would need to be like to have language work quickly and efficiently. Like, it would have to be something that you would be able to identify with someone else. If you said them over there or her over there or him over there, would have to be kind of obvious what you're saying, and it would have to be referring to a concept that I guess would be visually, or if you only have access to voice, somehow like identifiable outside of someone's inner life. um and it can be difficult to reconcile that with how people feel uncomfortable being identified as certain things. And ideally, we could have both of those, but sometimes they conflict. And um, so the reason I say it would be a linguistic convention related to masculine and feminine, which I guess would come from just the biological evolution of sex, is like in theory there could be genders like I don't want to be crude, but like girly man, like maybe you could have a set of pronouns for that, and
Well,
that could
we
make
used to
sense.
we used to use the term like tomboy for
Mhm.
girls who were, rough and tumble. It's kind of outdated, but I know what you
Yeah.
mean.
Well, and there could be some usage for a special pronoun for tomboys, right? Because it would describe something that would be easily identifiable, and I think the problem with that is it could explode, and there'd be so many pronouns that you wouldn't be able to use it. But I think if it's if it's limited to like sexual characteristics, I think it's manageable to sort of add new genders. Does that make sense?
I think so, but
One sec.
okay.
Oh, keep talking. I'm just picking up
Oh,
my mouse off the
yeah,
floor.
yeah. No, I was just gonna say that I see what you're saying, but I do think it's important that I think that we I think it's important to to use the idea that people should decide their own pronouns and decide what they want other people to use as their pronouns rather than somebody else sort of making that decision, because there are situations where somebody can be like, let's say, a trans woman, and they totally pass as a cis woman. Nobody would know unless they told them, and they want people to use feminine pronouns. But if somebody didn't do that and it outed them as being trans, that could potentially put them in a situation where they were in danger of some bigot violently attacking them for just for being trans. Like this type of thing has happened, or I don't know, different situations like that. So I don't know if, like, when you talk about new pronouns, like those are, I think, called neo pronouns.
Mhm.
Personally, I don't know how useful those really are, because I feel like it makes people not take these issues seriously. I feel like when you have, like, you know instead of he him, it's like z and zer spelled with an x. Like, I don't know if you've seen those.
Mhm.
Like Tumblr has a long list of pronouns, and people make fun of that stuff. That's again what I say is, like, I feel like you can't expect most people to use those pronouns and to take them seriously. That's why I had said in this in some of my comments here that most transgender people, and I'm speaking as somebody who's not trans, this is just my observation, that they want to function within the gender binary that we have. They either want to go from one gender to the other, and they want to completely pass as that gender and live their life as that gender. And really, like, their friends might know they're trans, but they don't want their waiter at a restaurant to know. You know what I mean? Like, if they don't have to, they just want to live their life as that gender. Like,
Mhm.
and there are people who are non-binary who kind of, sort of toe the line, and you know that's not my experience, but um, I would say the majority of people, just that's why they call it transgender, because you are transitioning. Usually not everybody transitions who is trans, um, but yeah. Kind of rambled there.
Yeah, so it's like yeah, like with picking up on your comments about trans usually want to stay in the binary. Um I think there's a reason why they go through a physical transition is because there is and it's not just a linguistic transition, it is physical because there it is tied to sex characteristics in my opinion. And non-binary people usually present as androgynous. Um, and I think there's definitely room for that kind of language where to describe a androgynous person with a special pronoun. Um, I think sometimes it's confusing, like what people want to communicate with the neo pronouns, or even like even non-binary pronouns for people who are presenting totally binary. It's hard to understand what they're trying to get accomplished other than they just want to hear a certain label, which is fine. But at that point, especially with the neo pronouns like fairy gender, like um,
I don't know
I,
where
I
you heard that.
well, I've heard all kind bug gender.
Mhm.
They have their own pronouns. Bug self. Um,
Yeah,
a lot of it's on TikTok, but
that's what I'm saying, I have
but
seen some of
oh
that.
yeah, but it kind of verges on just a name. Like it's a unique label for them and basically them alone. And so it seems to not be using the true function of what a pronoun is at that point.
Yeah. Um, I will say in my experience, from what I've seen of people on YouTubers or people on the internet that I've seen or followed who are trans or non-binary specifically, I've only ever seen them use either he, him, she, hers, or they, them pronouns or a mixture of them. It's never been any one of these other sort of neo
Mhm.
pronouns. I think a lot of that is mostly young people who are, I don't know, either experimenting or maybe joking around, or maybe they take it seriously. I don't think most people take those pronouns seriously. Um, but
Yeah,
it's like I said, I don't necessarily see the harm in it. But like I said, you can't. If they get offended that people aren't going to call them by their fairy gender pronouns, like, I mean, I'm not going to have that much sympathy for them.
yeah. Or it can be a lot to remember if, especially if
Right,
a lot of people start adopting this, um,
right.
which would be the trend that some people want to see. But and yeah, I don't think I've ever met anyone in real life with those sort of demands,
Yeah.
um, but there are other people who literally they have different pronouns or they present strange because they like to confuse people. They say that that's why, and I get that. They're kind of like I get the sentiment, but it's pretty easy to dismiss those people because they are essentially trying to mess with people. Um, it's
Yeah,
not that they're dishonest, it's just that it's kinda like sticking a middle finger to the stereotype, I guess.
right. Well, that's what I was mentioning earlier. There are some people who think that this binary should be abolished, and
Mm,
while I don't agree with the idea, I think it's an interesting concept. And if you can imagine a future a long time from now, where humans start to have robotic implants or have parts of their body replaced with robot parts if they lose a limb or something, then you start to cross into this transhumanism thing of then, well, what kind of gender would that be? Or artificial intelligence, like a totally, or like that debate that Danny was talking about, like God, like a supernatural being. Uh,
mhm.
so I think that, well, I think that those people, I don't think that they should have violence done against them because of what they're saying. Personally, I just think that there's not science behind that. I think there's science behind the idea of gender dysphoria and transitioning and gender identity and the gender binary. I think there's science behind the concept of being non-binary. I don't think there's science behind fairy gender. So,
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too is, like, it's getting away from the sex characteristics, which there is science behind, but there's no science behind fairy or dragon or I mean, even bugs, which exist, if you're
well,
a
that
bug
gets into like
gender.
otherkin. That's like a whole other thing. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah. um, but they do try and use different pronouns, and my understanding is that pronouns have something to do with identifiable characteristics, and in order to keep it not going out of control, like you could identify types of people based on fashion, like, but are we going to give goths their own pronouns? Are we going to give like preppies their own pronouns? Do hippies get a pronoun based on their look? I think it works as a sort of limited concept because it gives us a little bit of differentiation in language, the traditional usage of gender pronouns, but I think there needs to be some kind of limit. So definitely, species is not on that. Um, I don't think fashion works for that either because there are too many fashions and types of people. Although we know the labels for that, but at the same time, that is a noun. Like a goth kid is a noun. I don't think we need a pronoun for every noun.
Yeah, I think that fashion choices can be a part of someone's gender identity,
Mhm.
but I don't think that you'll ever see pronouns based on strictly fashion choices because really,
Yeah.
like, people aren't really associated into categories like that. Maybe in high school, like you'll see jocks or like emo kids. I was certainly goth in middle school.
Mhm.
But when you get older, like you kind of just exist, you're just like a person. You're not really in these categories. Like
Yeah.
you might call like I could categorize myself as like a gamer or somebody who is into PC gaming, but that's not going to be my gender.
Yeah. Well, even like gender essentialists will say, that's just a man in a dress. So it's like, and women traditionally have been a lot more flexible in terms of dress, but yeah, it doesn't matter what you wear, you're still identifiable as your gender. Now, there are associations, so a
Right.
trans person would feel like they're maybe passing better or just maybe interested more in a certain stereotypical dress, um, or fashion, but I don't think that defines it at all. I think it would be more body characteristics.
Right.
Um,
Well, clothing itself doesn't have a gender. There are
yeah,
associations, like you said,
that's
but
all cultural.
right. There are so when bigots talk about transgender people, they always talk about them getting the surgery as if there's one surgery, but there are
Hmm.
actually many different procedures that somebody might get. Like trans women will often get something that's called FFS or facial feminization surgery,
Hmm.
where they will shave down the jawbone or your nose to make it more petite
Or the
and
brow
make
line.
brow line to make your features more feminine and those can be the change can be really dramatic with just that procedure. And of course you have people who have top surgery where they have breast tissue removed, and I would say I don't know if this would just be a guess, but I would think that most trans people don't get bottom surgery because, for one thing, it's extremely expensive, and a lot of trans people feel comfortable without getting it. Of course, there are some
Hmm.
people who do, but I think there's a misconception with um, the turfs or the anti-trans people because they understand very little about this whole concept, that you have to have that surgery or both surgeries to count as being trans. Of course, they wouldn't even consider that person valid anyway. But if I can, I guess, change gears slightly for a second, I will say that I'm not a huge fan of this phrase that trans women are women, because
Hmm.
while I agree with the sentiment, really, we still make the distinction between cisgender women and trans women. So, I mean, if you would say that trans women are women, well, if they were, then you would just say women are women. You wouldn't say trans. We wouldn't have to even say this because it would just be a given. Obviously, there's a distinction between um, people who were born and assigned female at birth and people who transitioned. And trans people, they don't dispute this. Like they recognize the fact that they were assigned male at birth and that they might have had male genitalia or still have it. But that's why I say that it's the gender that's changed. I personally don't think that you can change your biological sex because you can't change your chromosomes. You can technically change your uh, your genitals, but uh, you can't physically change what you were assigned at birth. You're just changing, I think, how you function in society. And I think you should absolutely be, we should use the pronouns that that person wants, and we should recognize them as a woman, and they should be able to function as a woman in society without harassment or violence against them. But I don't think that, you're exactly the same as somebody who's, a biological woman. And I don't think trans people would disagree with that fact.
Yeah, there are certainly differences, and there's contexts where I wouldn't make the distinction, and there's contexts where I think you would. Um, and broadly, when someone says what women, they kind of mean biological, like women's issues, um,
Mm-hmm.
and how men kind of women are the carriers of children. Um, but I mean, you mentioned not having the chromosomes. Like you would say that um, women who have androgen insensitivity are women, like because they're biologically female. It's just that their Y chromosome basically doesn't do anything, or the androgens don't.
Yeah, see, that's why it's so complicated, because
Mhm,
that's why I disagree with the notion that there are only two genders. Because I feel like you can't say that there are only two genders if intersex people exist. Because I mean, how can you have a binary if you have a gray area in between the two binary options? And
mhm,
it's even more interesting if you're talking to a religious person about this, because you would ask them, well, why would God create intersex people? You know,
mhm.
that
Well,
doesn't
what's the
make
word?
sense.
Like bimodal distribution, where there's
Hmm.
two poles, like feminine and masculine, but there's stuff in between.
Yeah. Yep.
Um, yeah, and I think there's definitely room for potentially a pronoun for like tomboys or something like that. I'm not sure how useful it is because it's um, probably wouldn't come up a lot. But
Well, language is always changing.
yeah, I'm not sure what use a pronoun for androgen insensitive women would be either, because for all intents and purposes, they are women,
Yeah.
except for reproductive. But there are some cases where they are able to reproduce. Um, but they develop. Well, there is a spectrum within that development too, but a lot of them develop completely. Doctors can't even tell that they have XY chromosomes until they test it. They
Yeah.
they start noticing around puberty they aren't getting their period, and then they find out, oh well, actually genetically you're male, and it's like no
Yep.
one could have even told before.
Yeah. That's like I was saying, like there are sometimes men who don't even realize that they have internal ovaries until their doctor tells them about it, until they do
Hmm.
like an MRI or an X-ray or whatever,
Yeah,
however you would find that.
yeah, yeah. All men start out as basically
That's also
females in
true.
the womb,
Yep. Well, nature is
modified
imperfect.
females. Yeah.
Na- Nature is imperfect, and DNA replication is always an imperfect process. And nature itself, we want nature to have these very specific delineated categories, like with the species concept, which it really doesn't have. We just sort of make these cutoff points, but really, all species are a spectrum. If you look at evolution, you could say that if you're going to say that every organism or every population is transitional, then really it's sort of like one long spectrum of living organisms. It's just
Hmm.
life, DNA, just replicating itself in different ways, or different eukaryotes having different combinations of cells and different
Yeah.
functions for different cells.
Well,
Uh,
Ken Hovind always says that I don't think they care what you call it, and that's true. Actually, is biology doesn't care what you call it, and we try and put these categories on it, and the fact that we can't is great evidence for evolution.
yes.
Um,
Well, it sounds like we're agreeing on a lot more things than I thought we would. Um,
hmm.
So would you want to maybe move on to maybe talking about other species than human, or if you want, we could talk about that debate you did because I would love to.
Oh,
Uh,
sure. Well, I did want to talk a little bit. I did make a little note about like
okay.
gender roles being abolished. I mean, I think we're going to agree on this too, but um, definitely think roles should be abolished. And there's an interesting movie that just came out recently called Men. It's just um, I don't know if you've heard about it or seen it. It's kind of like this horror movie, but it's about kind of how men historically have been jealous of and try to control women, especially even as far as trying to appropriate their ability to give birth. And that's just an interesting thing where I know the turfs are going to want to say, no, men can't. This is our thing. Like, men can't share in the ability to carry children. As far as gender roles go, I mean, it seems really weird for men to carry children, but on principle, I can't say that I can be opposed to that. Um,
I mean, men can still lactate technically.
that's true too.
I mean, they must hate the seahorse then.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Um,
I think what you said is interesting because I feel like one reason that we could move past gender roles or at least change them somewhat is that for a long time there's been what I think is a very harmful notion for men is that they are not allowed to be to admit that they have emotions the way women often do. It's seen as
mhm.
unmanly for a man to cry, but men
And
cry. It's totally normal.
even in
Everybody feels
women,
emotions.
they're seen as like, they can cry because they're the weaker gender, right?
Yes, which is
Um,
silly.
yeah, there's definitely women are tend to be more, I guess, in tune with that part of experience and are able to process emotions better. Um,
Well, I
because partially probably because of some wiring in the brain, but also because societally men are discouraged from processing those feelings openly.
yes. I think a big reason for that is hormonal because estrogen.
Mhm.
Um, I've read a lot of testimonials of people who were transitioning, trans
Oh yeah.
women who are transitioning, and once they start taking estrogen, they're like, "I'm now crying at every Hallmark commercial," you
Hmm.
know, like
Yeah.
suddenly they're crying a lot more, and I think that is just strictly down to a hormonal release in your body that just makes your brain sort of release those type of chemicals,
Hmm.
and I think to um, sort of look down on women because of that is so ridiculous because you can't control your hormones.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. If men were given those hormones, they would have those feelings, and I think they would
Absolutely.
probably have a harder time controlling them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of that has led to men who won't seek help for mental illness
Hmm.
because they see it as a sign of weakness. They don't want to ask for help. They want to do everything on them by themselves. And a lot of them take their own lives because of that, because they don't get the proper health, they don't get the proper medication that they need for mental illness, or they don't reach out to people about their problems. They just bottle it up, and that's extremely unhealthy. You know,
Hmm.
it's very
Yeah,
unfortunate.
there are a lot of male abuse victims that we don't
Yes.
ever even hear from.
Yep.
Um, and yeah, so I think mostly where we would probably disagree is like I think the utility of assigning pronouns is more for the third person usage, and like self identification has some problems. And I also think So going back a little bit to, um, SRS, sex reassignment, um, it's carries a huge risk. Like you could lose sexual function, or I've now seen several cases where the person ended up being on a colostomy bag for, you know, to be determined and possibly the rest of their life, because of just, I guess, perforations,
Mm-hmm.
complications during the surgery. And obviously, no one wants to lose sexual function. Um, and I think, I'm not sure how much of that is just, obviously, there's just that risk.
Right.
Um, and it happens to legitimate trans women. But there, I feel like part of the reason that we want to make sure, like, this is the only, if you can't live with your current genitals, like, that's when the only time you should take the surgery, because one, there's the risk, but also we don't want to make light of it, like, oh, if you feel like you're a little bit different, then just change your gender. Like, it's not that simple.
Right.
So it, like, constant, affirmative care is a good thing, but nothing but affirmative care, affirming every, I don't know, whim of, like, someone who feels not gender non-conforming, I think needs a little bit of pushback. Because if we're saying, if you're not conforming to the gender norm, well, then you might be trans or non-binary. I think our culture is leaning a little bit toward saying that it's too easy to do that, because it is a risk. There are risks with hormone replacement, increased cancer risk. So it is a legitimate medical treatment, but it should be taken very seriously. It shouldn't be flippantly like, oh, just try it out, see how it feels.
Yeah. I
Well, we
think
might
that
agree on that part, but
makes sense. Of course, like you said, any surgery is going to come with risks. Any
mhm,
type of medication is going to potentially have side effects. And I do agree. Although I think that the gender affirming care and these clinics, a lot of them, especially if you're younger, they really have a long process to go through where they want to really make sure,
mhm,
before you um, go on something like hormones, because they do have puberty blockers for um, children who are younger or adolescents, and those are reversible. They don't carry a long-term risk because when you come off them, you basically just start puberty. So what the reason that they would put somebody on those is to delay like a male puberty. That way, if you're serious about transitioning, then you can start taking the estrogen hormone before, because it's much easier to do that rather than growing the shitty mustache and then getting all the body hair and going through a male puberty and then trying to change that after the fact. It's a lot
yeah,
easier if you start before that happens to transition. But that most people transition when they're already adults.
yeah,
And a lot of people, to get this type of care, they're on long waiting lists, so I think that it is. I think we are taking it pretty seriously. I think the medical industry is, but I think it could definitely be better. I think, like I said, I wish that the advancements could be made in these surgeries because they are improving, but they definitely still have some drawbacks. And that's why I said earlier that I think that is probably one of the reasons that a lot of trans people do not get bottom surgery, is because of also of these risks, of the
mhm,
recovery time, of all the things that go along with it.
yeah,
And they're like, well, I can just live how I am now, and I'm comfortable with the hormones I'm taking, and maybe if they have top surgery. Um, so that makes a lot of sense
yeah.
to me.
I think even puberty blockers are definitely less risky, but I'm not sure of all the full range of risk. But I know, I think her name is Jazz Jennings. She's got like a reality show, and she was on them, for so long that she. I'm not sure how it all shook out in the end, but there were major problems where she didn't have enough actual penis growth to be able to give her sex reassignment, where there just wasn't enough tissue down there to be able to
Hmm.
invert it. Um, so I'm not sure how that worked out in the end, or if there is any progress on that front. But so that is something to think about. Um,
Yeah, there
but
could
it
always be
is,
complications. Yeah.
yeah, it's always so. Yeah, traditionally there were a lot of I don't know, hurdles or gatekeeping to kind of make sure that this is what you really need. But I'm seeing more of just like even any pushback is seen as like transphobia, and that needs to be not taken seriously. Um, and then as far as the surgeries go, Katie is saying there are experiments for uterus transplants where the uterus is actually removed after the pregnancy, and I guess it's in trial right now or something like that. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, I think in our lifetime we could see some really major advancements in this front,
Oh yeah, especially as far as like organ transplant in general, organ printing. I think they're pretty close on that.
or stem cells.
Yeah, yeah, that's why genetics is really important. That's a huge thing to crack
You're playing
because
God.
it is, but it's so complex. Partially because there is no design in it. It's just kind of haphazardly evolved. There are so many Rube Goldberg type mechanisms that could be simplified with a designer, but just kind of ends up that way because it is a modification of a modification of a modification. There's no going back to blueprint or designing with other things in mind.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think overall we mostly agree other than like self ID. I guess we could talk a little bit more about that if you wanted.
Well, yeah, a Hovind gender. um,
Hovind.
Hovind. There's only two genders. Okay, there's uh uh Hovind gender and uh uh I forgot the other one. I had a stroke. Hovind.
He was saying that backstage last night too. He was like,
Of course he was. That's what I'm saying. He can't stop bringing this up. He's like obsessed with it.
Praise said something about someone. He was like, I can't tell what gender they are, and
Oh, Daria,
I
is that
was
what
like,
it,
I don't know. I didn't catch the full
he's
context,
been talking about Daria a lot like that. Ugh.
but it's like, okay, well, if you can't tell, doesn't that
You
tell
could
you
ask
something?
them. You could ask
Yeah,
them,
like, or doesn't that show you that it's that gender is mutable? Um, but
right?
yeah, Hovind was like, well, we could take a look at what's in their pants. I could tell you real quick.
Yeah, see, that's the thing is that, well, no, you couldn't, because if somebody's intersex, then what are you going to say then?
Mhm.
Like, and that's just so ridiculous. It's like, that's inappropriate. That's not how we determine gender. And why would you be doing that, Kent? You're not a doctor.
He's not.
I'm
um,
a doctor.
yeah, I've been teaching science for 15 years.
Yeah, I taught anatomy. That's what he says. Oh, I taught anatomy. Anatomy is not a class, like not in high school anyway. It's like part of a science curriculum, like biology curriculum. You don't just teach anatomy. Like, oh, I have fifth period anatomy.
Yeah, I'm sure he's real interested in anatomy.
Yeah. Well, he's
Um,
got his new series, Making Babies,
yeah, well,
which
that was like,
I'm gonna be doing a video on that soon because that was so ridiculous. I was
Yeah.
gonna do a stream on that today, but I forgot that we were gonna do this talk. Um, so I might do that later or whenever we finish up. But um, so what do you have any debates coming up? Like what's going on with the debate cafe thing? Did you do that one about anime?
Not yet. We gotta. I've been doing a lot of the debates, like participating in a lot of them that we've hosted. So I'm trying to take a step back and let other people
Yeah,
debate. So it's not
you
just
do it a
my
lot.
debate channel.
Yeah.
Um, it kind of just worked out that way because a lot of people try to challenge me, and I don't want to waste a good debate. But yeah, we have Praise versus Luca Medugno
Hmm.
tomorrow night, and Mark Reed versus I think Chris. Oh no, versus Jesus is Lord.
On
Um,
biblical slavery.
yeah, later that week.
That'll be a good
Yeah.
one.
Yep.
That'll be good.
Yeah.
I will say, SFT, he asked me if I wanted to be in the 2-on-1 debate that you did, but like he asked you like a day before the debate was, right?
Yeah. He asked me last night.
Yeah, I didn't even see his message until after I
Oh.
already saw the debate. I have to say, even though I would have said no, I
Mm.
will say that I think it probably would have been better if it was me and you rather than Emo, just because of the trouble he was having with his setup.
Yeah. He
And
he usually
that would
has
have
a little
been
bit of a delay.
Yeah, that would have been good though. Like,
Yeah.
even though I'm very hesitant to go on that platform again and debate Hovind, I will say that part of me was kind of like, oh, that would have been good if it was, because
Yeah.
me and you, I think we did really good as debate partners, and I think it would have been interesting to see us go against Hovind. I mean, there's it could happen again. You never know. But I just laughed when uh you called him out on not researching the algae.
Yeah. Every time he says the same thing,
I made a
and
video on
then
that.
he just doesn't do anything about it.
Yeah, it was so funny because he wasn't expecting that, and he just like was like stunned. Like he knew you're
Mhm.
right, But what part that pissed me off was that when you were just trying to get your partner to participate, and you were like, well, Emo, do you want to answer that question? And Kent was like, oh, help me out, Emo. Like, no, Kent, that's not what he's doing. It's just like it's a 2-on-1.
Yeah. Like I'd been talking for 15 minutes. Like
Right.
maybe get the other guy in.
Yeah.
But he's actually very knowledgeable on these topics, and he has great questions. His connection is
Yeah,
unfortunate though.
that just kills it,
Yeah. I
It
think
kill Yeah, it's unfortunate.
I think we could try and uh, get him a laptop. If
Yeah.
not one of my old ones, we could maybe do a fundraiser or something.
Well, I have a
Because I really
microphone.
want to see him debate more.
I have my old microphone I'm not using anymore. Maybe I could donate it.
Yeah, yeah, but I usually don't like the team debates so much because they're so chaotic. But I liked ours a lot. I think
Yeah.
uh, we play off
Yeah.
each other pretty well.
Yeah, that one was fun, and I just thought it was really interesting, even though like uh, the man Bubblegum Gun, his mic was so awful. His mic quality was hurting my
Yeah,
ears. Like I had to
yeah,
turn my volume down, and he kept derailing the debate constantly. You know,
yeah,
to go back to his dumb question.
yeah. And they wouldn't have any common ground. Like, no, we're just not gonna let you bring in any of the assumptions that we agree with.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
you and me were using the same slides, for the same set of slides. We I think even though we didn't get the chance to talk before the debate, you and me were much more on the same page than they were.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
I
You can
think
tell
there
they
was,
coordinate it all.
yeah, because Maddox was just quiet for most of the time that, BGG was talking. And
Yeah,
then he got on his own thing. I will say though, towards the end of the debate, like when you brought up the code thing, and I was like, oh no. like, why did he do that? Because it set Maddox off. But I guess
Yeah.
you were doing that to like get it out of the way or something. I was just like, oh, Snake, what have you done?
Well, it was about, I guess it was probably about information, right?
Something
But
like that.
I knew he would. I knew we were prepared to shut down like the part he was going to try and talk about.
Yeah,
So
I think we definitely did.
Ian
Um,
says he could debate with us. We'll bring the science and he'll just throw grenades.
yeah, we'll do a
Rock,
3-on-1.
rock hard Kent. That's still the
Yeah.
best.
Oh, rock hard Hovind. Uh,
Rock hard Hovind.
I'm Hovind, and I'm rock hard like uh uh sedimentary rock hard Hovind. You
Uh,
know, he was
it
saying
was all
today,
settled down in 1 year.
yeah, he was saying in his video yesterday about you can't use carbon dating on sedimentary rock. I'm
It's
like, you
like,
can't
yep,
use it on any rock.
correct. Yeah, and yeah, I just that pisses me off more than anything. Where he just says the same thing over and over.
I
Last
know.
time, he said you're gonna have two mommy and daddy have the same mutation at the same time in the same place. And we had a whole back and forth, like, you know that's not true. You know one parent can have a mutation and pass it on. He's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Moving on.
Yeah, that's what
And he
pissed
just
me
says the
off too.
same thing again.
That's what pissed me off in the debate too, is that when you completely owned Kent with the algae, eventually he's just like, okay, we'll move on to the next topic. I'm like, okay, like, so you're just admitting that you're completely wrong, or you just don't care. Like that's what makes me feel like I don't want to debate Kent again, because I know no matter what I say, Kent is going to repeat the same things that he's always been repeating. And after the debate's over, he'll make a video the next day and he's going to repeat the same lies he's been repeating, regardless of how many times I corrected all of them in my debate. And no matter what I say in my debate, no matter how many lines of evidence I bring up in my opening or during the debate, every single one of the Hovind fans is going to say, he didn't present any evidence. He had no evidence for evolution. And
Yep.
like, they're already have their minds made up. Hovind has his mind made up. So, and our side has our mind made up. So it's almost like, what is even the point other than to just humiliate Kent and expose him for being a liar, which I like to do during debates. I like getting him caught in his own lies because that just
Yeah.
brings me joy.
That's
But
the point with Hovind. Like there are some people who have their minds made up, but who can you can have a good discussion with, like
mhm,
Chris Silvius. At least we'll discuss, and he'll say, "Oh, that's a good point." Um, or Ben White, uh, they're. I don't think that we're going to change their minds anytime soon, but they actually have discussions. Hovind
or
just
Paleologos maybe.
right. I've never talked to him, but I've heard good things.
He seems interesting.
Yeah, but
But
yeah,
yeah,
Kent's all about rhetoric. It's like, okay, 10 minutes of evidence for evolution, a little bit of saying why creationists have a double standard with this evidence. Oh, you're just attacking creationism. I saw no evidence.
yeah, and I find it so cowardly how if he gets the slightest hint that somebody's trying to make him defend his own beliefs, he'll just whip out his, oh, I'm not trying to get it taught in public schools thing, which I really took him to task on my last debate. Like, and he basically admitted like 3 or 4 times that that is what he's trying to do.
Mm,
Um, yeah, I don't know if you saw the debate with Horazio and Kent. Um,
no.
oh, you should watch that one. It's so good.
Horazio?
Yeah, Horazio is his name. I don't know how
Mm.
you pronounce his last name. He lives in
Is that
Mexico
an old
City.
one?
No, it's recent.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Maybe
I'm
I'll
pretty
send it to
sure
me.
that he watched my debate with Kent. I can't say for sure, but he
Oh wait,
seemed
maybe
like,
I did.
yeah,
I remember kind of a
because he
guy
brought up
with
the
like a
thing.
Latin accent
Mhm.
talking with him.
Yeah, because he brought up the thing about about how it's wrong for him to say amoebas. He brought up, some of the things that I brought up about how Kent conflates giving birth with animals having many generations over a long period of time. He
Mhm.
acts like they're the same thing. Um, And, I mean, a lot
Yeah.
of people saw my debate. Like, it got more views on my channel than it did on SFT's or Hovind's combined.
Yeah. Well, the way he was talking last night, it's almost like he thinks one day an animal's just gonna appear with a penis, a fully formed penis, when its parents had none. It's like, no, not how it
That
works.
that's
And
what we
he was like, the cows don't have sex with the emus. Like, yep.
Yeah,
No one thought they would.
he acts like a dog has never humped an animal of a different species, you
Yeah,
know?
I didn't even. Yeah, I could have gone there. There is interspecies sexuality, but
Yeah, and like he'll say, "Oh, apes, they just if you want to see who's the same kind, just watch the apes. They'll go after the female." And it's like, not bonobos. They are extremely gay.
mhm.
Bonobos are extremely gay.
Dolphins try to have sex with people.
Yeah,
I
and
mean, you
and
could pick
other dolphins.
on everything he says could be picked apart, but you'd be
I
there
mean,
for 6 hours if you.
ducks will try to have sex with dead ducks.
Yeah,
Like they're necrophiliac rapists.
I think penguins do that too,
Oh God.
um, and humans sometimes as well.
Well,
Yeah,
I think that might be a good note to go out on the necrophilia.
yeah. Well, thanks for joining me here today, and
Yeah, it's fun.
yeah, maybe we could like review a debate sometime or team up another time. I know you said you were kind of done for a while, but
Yeah, well, I felt like I needed a break after that last one because it was just so long, especially the Q&A just never ended because James was having tech issues, and I was just
yeah,
like, dude, because these headphones I have, they start to hurt my ears after a while, and I was just like dying. Um,
yeah. I did a
but
flat Earth debate like a couple days later with James, and the Q&A lasted for like an hour almost,
yeah,
maybe
he needs to
more.
fix that. He needs to fix that. It's too long, man.
And like the one we did together, I felt fine after, but like the flat Earth and Kent last night, like I just had a headache. Like
Hmm.
I get this like very strange like sickness after certain debates. Like it's very specific. Like I know it's a very specific feeling of like exhaustion and loss of brain cells. Like
Yeah, it's mentally taxing and
yeah,
stressful, you know?
yeah,
I credit you for being able to do those debates. I felt like I needed a long break after that, but I forwarded you an email because somebody was asking me about if you and me would do a debate review of our debate with LPP, and then so
oh right,
maybe we could
wait,
yeah, maybe we could do that on
yeah,
this channel because
okay,
I already re-uploaded the full video on my channel, so I don't know if it would make sense to review the debate when I've already uploaded on there. I don't know, but I'd be down to do something like this on here, and I could send some of my viewers over. I'll post a
yeah,
link because are you getting close to 1K on here
yeah. I've got
or
like 910-ish now.
nice?
Yeah,
So we'll get you monetized.
yeah.
Nice. Yeah, Ian is encouraging me that I need to pass Donnie in subs because he just hit 11K.
I know. Well, you're killing it.
Oh, thanks. You said I'm one of your favorite YouTubers. That was very nice.
Yeah, it's
Well, I
true.
try. Yeah, I try to put out good content.
Yeah,
My video on Ken Hovind, the dissertation about Ken Hovind's paper, has been doing really good. Like a lot of people uh, watched that, and then the author of the paper showed up and sent me a donation in the middle of it, and the response has been really good. So, um, yeah, I'm at like 6,300 now. So I'm just hoping
yeah,
it'll keep growing.
yeah. That was a great one. Yeah, you picked a good focus to put a lot of your energy into too.
Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking about doing that with Nephilim Free, but he's, you know, I don't know.
I get these comments from Hovind fans. They're so mad that I do videos on Kent, you know? And I'm like, here's a playlist of 25 videos I've done that are not about Kent. Can you stop leaving these comments? Because that's all they want to
Yeah.
say. Oh, you're obsessed with Kent.
Well,
Oh,
and he's a big force in creationism, so why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't you?
I mean, I've had success on my channel. This is what my viewers like to see, and I do branch out my content, but you know, these are the videos I enjoy making, and like I say, it's my channel, and like, why? Like, they're mad that I've found success doing this. They don't like that, you know,
Yeah.
especially Kent. It pisses him off
Yeah.
because he wants to attribute all of my views to the fact that his name is in my titles and my videos, which is just bullshit. You know,
Well,
these are
you know he's just right. That's why you're so obsessed with him.
mm.
That's why you inhabit him in your rap career.
Yeah, it does make me laugh to think that he's seen some of those videos, and I like doing them because I know Kent watches my videos, and he must have just been so confused, you know.
Yeah, I wonder if he has seen the rap ones.
I'm pretty sure he has because, dude, I swear he watches my content. Like, he
Yeah.
commented on a bunch of my videos, and on his channel, there was a couple days in a row where he did like 3 videos. None of them had anything to do with me, but he mentioned me in all of the videos just out of the blue. Like, and he's, the guy, they say I'm obsessed with Kent, but like, I mean, I don't know.
Ian says it must be the accent. Yeah. Kent couldn't understand Ian, apparently.
Oh yeah, he was saying that, oh, you're mumbling. He said that about me too, that, oh, you're mumbling. Like,
It's because he doesn't use headphones.
I know, that's what I said. That's what I told Donnie. Tell Kent to wear fucking headphones. He's obviously going deaf. He blames us for it.
Yeah. But yeah, you're a force, so yeah, and he's mining for content as well, so it's only natural he would go after you too.
Well, I don't have a problem with it. I just think it's funny,
Yeah.
um, because I always tell those, like, Kent was complaining that I did a lot of videos about him in one of my videos, and I was like, "What are you gonna do about it, Kent? You gonna cry? You gonna cry? Is that a tear?" Like,
Mhm.
I don't know. That's what I tell the commenters now. Like, are you gonna cry? You gonna cry more?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I just fuck with them.
Well, and he's so like I guess memeable, or he's just fun to watch, you know. So
I
yeah,
know, like,
he's a good target.
and like the screenshots you can take of him, like for thumbnails, like he makes the most ridiculous faces. It's like, how could you not make YouTube content about this guy?
Yeah.
But
But
I
yeah,
have tried to branch out, but I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing.
oh
And
yeah, keep it up, and especially kind of the exposed content, like where you're talking to his ex-wife and Mark
mm,
Stoney, and
well,
have you been checking out his like 24 365 like Kent exposed streams?
yeah, I think that's funny. I think it might be a
Yeah,
little bit much, but he shows some of my videos on there sometimes, so I'm like,
yeah,
hey, go for it. But without me saying too much, there's gonna be one of those big videos coming out soon with me. It's
awesome.
gonna So you can look forward to that probably within the next month or two.
All
It's going to
right.
be a lot of work, it's going to be a lot of work, a lot of research,
Yeah,
but I'm down. I am taking this YouTube thing like really seriously now. Like, I treat it like a job, and it keeps me really busy, but
yeah,
just the comments I get from people are so nice. The people are so nice, and it really keeps me going. So, um, I love it. Honestly, I love doing YouTube. So,
yeah. Well, you're doing it well,
you
and I
too.
wish you more success as the days roll on.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, but yeah, I want to debate Kent on is evolution evil, or because he's always it's the most dangerous and dumbest religion of all.
See, I would like to see a good debate with him on the geologic column, and somebody, because Horazio did this really well, where he really laid out the whole thing about the layers being older, and he
Yeah,
cornered Kent, where Kent literally just had to change the subject, and it was so obvious. But that is one argument that really frustrates me that he keeps repeating, because it's like he has to know that that's wrong,
yeah,
you know?
and he'll say stuff that he knows is wrong, or just forgets that he agreed was wrong. He'll just keep saying it. He'll
Yeah.
say it again next time.
Yeah. I mean, he doesn't care. He stopped caring a while ago.
Yeah. And the flying monkeys will just keep singing his praises, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, that's why I do what I do, because if he's gonna keep doing that, then I'm gonna keep exposing it. Like, if they want me to stop making the videos on him, tell him to stop lying.
Yeah.
It's really simple.
Well, and you're gonna keep getting whacked.
Yeah, I got whacked 2 weeks in a row recently.
Yeah. Whack an
Yeah.
atheist. Ian says Donnie asked if I would like to debate RHK on the geological. What's RHK?
Rock hard can't.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he asked me the same thing, bro. He's always trying to get people to debate because he can make super chat money. I see what you're doing, Donnie. I see what you're doing.
Yeah, he's profiting, but
Of course he
you know,
is. And I don't have a problem with it. I'm just saying that's why he's always encouraging people to debate.
yeah. Well, I'm trying to break into that business as well, but
Yeah, well, hopefully I can help you get some more subs.
yeah, well, thanks. Yeah, and on our channel we like judge the debaters, and so I'm really incentivized to kind of get some wins for the creationist or theist side, based purely on performance, not whether I agree with their conclusions. Um, and so I'm definitely looking for good debaters. So maybe I'll branch out to like Paleo Logos, reach out to him.
Yeah, that would be a good idea because it's hard to find any good creationist debaters these days.
Yeah, because it's like I want to give you points for debate style, but a lot of them just kind of assert. And I don't
Yep.
want to appear biased, but that is what we do over at Debate Cafe
Mm-hmm.
is we give you scores. But most people have taken it pretty well. And everyone has taken it pretty well, except Otangelo. He got mad at me the other day because
Shocker.
I've been arguing with him in email. So he's like, "I'm never coming back on because you're biased." It's like
Mm-hmm.
you knew my position already.
Yeah, that's why I called him out in that email because he says, "Oh, I'm gonna stop responding," and I said, "No, you're not, dude. Why do you lie?" And he was
Yeah,
like, "I blocked you."
yeah. That
That's
was for anyone who doesn't know. There's a big email chain. Otangelo trying to push his anti-evolution, abiogenesis stuff, and I just took a look at his sources, and it's like there. He says that there is no one, or he says that people argue against prebiotic selection. So I looked at his sources, like almost a dozen, and every one of them argues for prebiotic selection. So I was just calling this out, and he just got super butt mad at me, and
Yep,
there
that's
you
what he
go.
does. That's what he does.
Yep. It's like I'm not arguing whether they're correct or not. I'm just looking at what is the argument in the paper. He can't even get that right, but he thinks he knows more than all of the scientists. And I think that's kind of what we should be focusing more on is like just their methodology sucks. So how are we supposed to trust their conclusions?
Yeah, I know. I'm in the email chain, Ian. I'm in there. I just watch. I'm like a voyeur watching from a tree with my binoculars.
Yeah, hopefully I'm not annoying people with too much, but yeah, I had to jump in that time.
Yeah.
But anyway, thanks for joining me, and this I think this was your idea, so
Yeah.
yeah, we'll get together for wait, are we reviewing Wade's debate, or he
Um.
wants to see us review our debate?
Yeah. That one.
Okay, all
So
right.
we can schedule that out later. Uh.
I did review one of his debates, which actually was good. I think he improved a lot.
with Hovind.
over, yeah. Because the first one I saw with him, I was like, Hovind's kind of winning here,
Yeah,
but
I agree.
he definitely, I thought he did a lot better in the one that I watched.
Well, Kent is a tough opponent. You know, I always say that he is not easy to debate against.
Yeah, his it works. That's why he uses it.
Yeah.
But well, yeah. Anyway, apparently Tangelo started a new email chain. We'll see if I'm included in that.
Yeah, we'll see.
But all right. Well, thank you again, and we'll talk soon.
Sure. I'll just catch you
Alrighty.
later.
And thanks to the chat and the audience. And we're out.
See ya.